A new Associated Press investigation has discovered that amidst all the gun violence that we've been facing in this country, the military certainly isn't making matters any better. In fact, the military in the 2000s, early 2000s, had essentially lost literally thousands of weapons and oftentimes had no idea that they had lost many of them. So the Army couldn't say how its Beretta M9 got to New York's capital in Alberta. Until the June 2018 police foot chase, the Army didn't even realize someone had stolen the gun. Inventory records checked by investigators said the M9 was 600 miles away, safe inside Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So what's up with this 9mm Beretta M9? Like what's up with this gun? Well, it turns out it was actually connected to 4 shootings in Albany, in Albany, New York. And so this is actually a widespread problem that has basically gone unnoticed by the military. Weaponry being stolen. In some cases, it's an inside job where lower ranking soldiers will know about some vulnerabilities. And hey, the military's got a lot of weapons. They're not gonna notice. Why not steal them and sell them on the private market? Now, an Associated Press investigation has found that at least 1,900 US military firearms were lost or stolen during the 2010s, with some resurfacing in violent crimes because some armed services have suppressed the release of basic information. The Associated Press actually is underestimating just how many of these weapons have gone missing or have been stolen. Now, while the AP's focus was on firearms, and this should concern you, military explosives also were lost or stolen, including armor-piercing grenades that ended up in an Atlanta backyard. And I just want to quickly show you what the makeup of these weapons are. The Associated Press provided a graph that helps visualize what kind of weapons were stolen or have gone missing. Rifles tend to be the top weapon with 1,179 missing, 694 handguns. You have 74 machine guns, 36 grenade launchers, 34 rocket launchers, and the list goes on and on, 11 shotguns. So this is obviously a problem, and I'll outline where some of these weapons ended up and the crimes that they were used in, but also note that some of these weapons end up in Latin American countries. They end up in places where they're used for violence against civilians. And then we have these conversations about why people are fleeing violence in their own countries. We should have a discussion about how we contribute to that violence ourselves.
Yeah, now I know the lead is all these missing weapons and they're showing up in crimes all across the country, and it's the incompetence of the military plus a sea of guns, plus tons of violent people and the glorification of guns in the country. But that sub-headline is a hell of a thing, that 36 grenade launchers and 34 rocket launchers. Holy cow, I mean, you saw the graph. That's 70, basically shoulder-fired missiles. Like, that's unbelievable. So they're somewhere out there. And by the way, the right wing says they have pretty much an unlimited right to arms. They believe that cop killer bullets are okay. They think that people on the terrorist watch list should be able to buy weapons. So if there are no bounds to weapons and there are no bounds to who can get them, so presumably people on the terrorist watch list in America can get their hands on a rocket, launcher or a grenade launcher. And so there's no end to the madness in America. Look, I presume some of these were stolen to sell to other countries or gangs, which is disastrous, right? But can some of them still be here, whether they were sold to gangs or not? Remember, if they're sold to gangs, the gangs are also here, right? So it's beyond disastrous. And I'm curious to see if the right wings, of course, they're not gonna defend the theft, right? But if somebody starts using grenade launchers, they might be like, hey, right to bear arms. It's arms, it's arms. I have an unlimited right. I'm an American. If there's tyranny in the government, how am I going to kill all those cops and military people, the right wing might say, without having grenade launchers?
I gotta say, in this particular story, the right wing really hasn't responded yet. So while I would love to go after the right wing, I think that there are actually other groups of people worth going after. And my main focus is really Congress and the inaction by Congress and their unwillingness to address these matters. You know, the military had to report on missing weaponry to Congress, but the law that forced them to do that expired and Congress did nothing about it. And so that's exactly the reason why the Associated Press reached out to the military and wanted to see some documentation. You know, they did this investigation through Freedom of Information requests, and the military was like, we don't really know. We're not really keeping tabs on all of this stuff because guess what? They don't have to. And one other thing I want to just quickly mention, I'm not making any excuses for anyone in the military who might steal these weapons and then sell it in the black market. However, I also want to just point out that it's thought that the lower ranking members of the military are the ones who are doing this. How much do they get paid again?
They get about $19,000 when they first enter the military. All the support the troops that you've ever heard, almost none of it goes to the actual troops. Almost all of it goes to defense contractors, and they're very, very wealthy executives. Those guys, of course, don't have to steal anything because they already stole from the American government.
Now, before I give you some more details on this, I want to go to this fun video from a Senate hearing where there were some questions asked about this particular issue and what needs to be done about it. So in the wake of this Associated Press investigation, Army Secretary Christine Wormuth was telling senators what she thinks needs to happen. But I actually want you to pay close attention to the framing of the question from this senator. Watch.
1,900 firearms is not exactly a small number. Apparently, a substantial number are used in crimes, have been recovered at crime scene. I would like to know whether you will commit, as the Pentagon used to do, sharing annual updates about lost or stolen firearms with Congress, whether you will resume that regular reporting.
We do take these reports very seriously, and I absolutely commit to you to look into this and share what we know, and get back to you on it.
I don't mean to interrupt, and I apologize, but will you commit to reporting to Congress as was the practice?
Senator, I think what I can commit to is we can share with you everything we in the Army understand about our weapons.
And will you support a reporting requirement generally to the Department of Defense?
I think we'd be open to a reporting requirement.
So she says she's open to a reporting requirement. I just think it's fascinating that Senator Blumenthal, who is a lawmaker, is asking these tough questions and essentially passing the buck. No, you're the lawmaker. The law that required the Pentagon to report on missing weapons expired. I mean, it's not like he's a new lawmaker. He's been in office for a while. Why is this an issue now? And why are you passing the buck onto an Army secretary when in reality, lawmakers need to pass laws. They need to do their job. Congress is really to blame for this issue. Now, are there security vulnerabilities within the military? Yes, clearly it's a huge problem in the Army where the majority of these weapons were stolen. Let's take a look at the next graph. It'll give you a sense of, among the armed services, the Army has lost the most weapons. It's not even close. Then you have the Navy, Marines, and others. But overwhelmingly, it's the Army, and they're not gonna go out of their way to do public accountability unless they're forced to do it. And the only way they'll be forced to do it is if lawmakers do their jobs.
Okay, I only have two quick things to say. One is actually reading a member comment. Jay Brown writes in, shows our military is so overfunded, they don't even know when a weapon goes missing. We should redirect some funds from the military to fund things like Medicare for all or $15 minimum wage. Well, that sounds like a pretty good idea rather than having it go to rocket launchers that they then lose or sell in the black market. Even Eisenhower warned us about this, the guy who helped win World War II and was a Republican president, but nobody ever listens. And it's part of the giant waste in the military. They have so much money and weapons, they almost literally don't know what to do with it. And so thank you to our members for participating in the show, as Jay Brown just did, great point. And finally, I just want to double down on what Anna said in the beginning, which is, look, we're sometimes tough on the press, including on the Associated Press. especially when they fire the wrong people for no reason because of right-wing pressure. Yeah, I mentioned that again. But here, fantastic investigative journalism. Thank you. That good journalism is possible, and credit where credit is due. Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.